You are listening to Something Rather Than Nothing. Creator and host, Ken Vellante. Editor and producer, Peter Bauer.
This is Ken Vellante with the Something Rather Than Nothing podcast, and I'm very pleased to have the singer and actress Emily Coupe on this episode. Welcome to the podcast, Emily.
Oh, thanks for having me, Ken. I'm excited to be on it.
Yeah, I'm excited, and I like that you do different types of creative work, and we'll hear one of your songs, recent songs. But before we get into the art that you create, a little bit of a beginning question: were you an artist when you were born?
That's an interesting question because I think we're all artists when we're born, in the sense that we all have creative abilities and senses or whatever. But yeah, I think everybody's artistic. I think some people just choose to lean more into it, or do less or more of it. But even like maths, even cooking, everything requires creativity. Like all kinds of things. But I think when I was born, I've always been inclined to do the arts and do acting, like even drawing, painting, all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, and so as I mentioned at the beginning, you do some acting. You're quite busy with that, and entering film, and also recording music. And I know you've had some shows, and I've heard a couple of your interviews as far as playing instruments and doing that and being the lead. What has been your recent experience, playing live music, particularly with the changes in the world and the pandemic? You getting out there, being right in front and putting out your own music. What's that been like?
It's been well, I guess the past year has been weird in the sense of most of what I've been doing has been live streams, just because we couldn't meet in person. We were in lockdowns and stuff like that. But the past couple, like 2-3 shows have been in person, which is really cool. And it honestly feels like nothing's changed. I mean, like it feels like it was before the pandemic. Like most people either have masks on them, but when I was playing those shows, no one had masks really. They were inside, like it was packed. But this was before we now have to wear masks again, so it might be different. I actually have a show coming up Thursday, so it'd be interesting to see if we have to wear masks, like while we're standing around and stuff like that. But for the most part now, in the past couple months, it feels pretty normal. So it's good, but we'll see with future lockdowns and whatever if we regress backwards again.
Yeah, I was actually speaking to another recording artist, Dylan Jett, on a recent episode, who's based in Melbourne, and just having that conversation. And he just had a show canceled, and things are starting up again. So I have some international guests, and it's always interesting because times are constantly changing as far as when it comes to being able to perform live. But I was just wondering about that. And it was great to see you have some great shows, like Famous at the Viper Room, and it's really exciting to see. And I really enjoy your music. And I want to play a track for the listeners. So I find when I have a musical guest, if I leave the track too long, the track is sitting out there. So it's a song, I See Only You. And is there any little bit you want to say right before I play that track?
Yeah, it's a song I wrote during the pandemic. I wrote it by myself. It's actually I was having guitar lessons about finger picking, and so I was like, I'll try to put it into one of my own songs. And so I was like struggling to finger pick, and I wrote this song in like maybe 10 minutes. And I was like having a songwriting day where I was like, I'm just going to write 2 or 3 songs in one session just to band them out. So band this one out, didn't think too much of it, put it into like a list of 40 songs. Like I collected this database, and then I was trying to choose songs to record for my album, and this one was one of them. And I think with creativity and art and songwriting, it's like sometimes the more you think about a song, you can overdo it. Sometimes you just have to put the idea out there, get it into a format where you can like have a recording of it. Like I just do it on my voice memo, put it into like a database, and then come back to it. You don't have to like overthink it too much, I find, with my stuff. But anyways, so this song's very romantic. It's very sweet, and yeah, it's just cute.
Wonderful. We're going to cut to the track right now. This is Emily Coupe and her recent single, I See Only You.
I was walking, you knew my name. You were talking to me. As the days go by, the reason why I know only you. I see only you as I'm walking around the room. So much is clear in my eyes. You're the one that brightens up the night. You bring me to life. You were with me, I was there. Though my mind was somewhere else. As the days go by, the reason why I fall for you. I see only you as I'm walking around the room. So much is clear in my eyes. You're the one that brightens up the night. You bring me to life. I knew you now and then. You keep me warm until the end. Oh, I loved you from the very first moment. You made me laugh now and then. I see only you as I'm walking around the room. So much is clear in my eyes. You're the one that brightens up the night. You bring me to life. I see only you as I'm walking around the room. So much is clear in my eyes. You're the one that brightens up the night. You bring me to life. You bring me to life. Oh, you bring me.
Thank you for that song, Emily.
Oh, thanks. Of course, it was interesting hearing it again. I haven't listened to it in a while. I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful song, and you're a lovely singer. So thanks for creating that. I wanted to ask one of the big questions of the show. You're an artist, you create a lot of different things, and what exactly is art?
That's such a good question. I think art. I think art is our imagination. I mean, because art is something. It's like creating something that you haven't quite, that doesn't previously exist. It's being creative, problem solving, and yeah. I mean, I think that's it. It's imagination, and then how you physicalize that. Your imagination can be, writing. It can be painting. It can be songwriting. It can be songwriting with a guitar, and it can be carpentry. It can be sewing. So I think it could be cooking. So yeah, I think it's physicalizing your imagination for me is creativity. Art is art.
I noticed that word physicalizing, like creating it that way and putting it out into the world. A related question. always, so you have art and you have art objects. What do you think the role of art is for us, like as humans? Like, what is art supposed to do for us?
I think what art is meant to do for us is it's meant to create joy, and it allows us to play and to use the right side of our brain, because I feel like a lot of life can be very left-sided. Bills, like if you have a very left-sided job, accounting, whatever, and the right side play just allows you to, yin and yang, and like to utilize the other side. And most people resort to like creativity, fun, whatever, to counteract their day-to-day lives of a 9 to 5. And then some of us try to do it as a living, which then becomes another whole thing, because sometimes to make a living, especially in music, you have to join this machine of doing it a certain way. So then you almost give up your creativity to fit into this mold, which is interesting. But I think, art for art's sake is it's playtime, it's fun, and that's with kids it brings us back to our childlike self, and just remember who we are innately without adulthood.
Yeah, I've had the theme come up a lot. At first, in starting the podcast, I mentioned this a few times during the shows, is that, at first it was like philosophy and art and creativity and these bigger questions. But what it really quickly dropped into is like creativity, health, healing, communication, just like larger things that we do as humans. I wanted to chat about acting for a moment. I listened to a quote recently, and it really struck me. It was an interview with Ethan Hawke about acting, and he was describing it as a way for him to enter into greater empathy with other humans, right?
Yeah.
So if you play the scoundrel, you play the lover, you play the killer, you play the not you build an empathy for the serial killer, but you enter with an act, and you enter into this mind or mindset of that character, and it kind of builds a greater awareness. I want to talk about the question just for you, singing, performance, and then acting. And a lot of folks do that, but how is it for you to perform, on film as a creative outlet?
Yeah, I love what you said about Ethan Hawke. I think it really does allow you to find empathy of that character. And like one thing that Meryl Streep says comes to mind is when she plays a character that's different to her, she doesn't look at what's different between her and the character. She tries to find all the ways she's similar to that character. So, you could play a serial killer, but I think the whole point of us, well, number one, if someone chooses us to play the character, it's like, okay, they see we have traits that the person has anyway, even if it's physically, whatever. And then we need to find how we are similar to these characters. And I think it's scary. There probably are a lot of things where we have in common with serial killers. Like, we were bullied, or we had heartbroken, or we, were depressed, or we were like fired from our jobs or rejected. And it's just that they ended up going down path B instead of path A, which is like, expressing their anger in a very violent way. So it's like, but that's how I think you could relate to that character. It's like you felt all the things leading up to them making that decision, but then it's like, then the what if you made that decision in that role? Because I mean, we all have the potential to be serial killers. We all can get a knife and stab somebody. So I think it's like interesting getting into that mindset. But when I have ever done character research of like a dark nature of like death and whatever, like vibrationally, energetically, you do feel a little icky, because if you try to stay very clean and like not do anything immoral, whatever, you feel that difference. That's why it's like, if I were to play a character that is more icky, I probably almost have to do this visualization of I'm stepping into that character now, and the space of researching the character, then step out of it and do some kind of like energetic cleansing, because I'm very sensitive. Like if I watch a horror movie or a negative film, like I feel really crap after. I feel like off. So it's like, there's that. So yeah, you number one have to find empathy between you and the other character, and then put yourself in their shoes and go, what if you got into that situation? And then one thing I love about acting is you get to play different characters. You get to experience different lives. Like, oh, I'm a cowgirl on a ranch living in the middle of nowhere and involved in this like gang shootout or whatever. And it's like, I would never get to live that life. Or I'm in Greece on a boat in the Caribbean or whatever, like, you know. And I think that's for me the most exciting thing about acting. One of them that you get to travel and you get to be in different situations you never get to live in. Like you could live 100 lives in one by just playing them out. And then I also love with acting the connection you have with the other character. Like I just did a film called The Crossroads, and it was really great because my co-actor Nick was so great, and we like built a connection as the characters. And I think if you're very empathetic people, like you really connect to each other and just is very, you just watch each other and it's just reacting. And I think it felt so effortless to act opposite him because he gave a lot for me to like work with instead of just whatever. And I think that when you have the situation, it's really beautiful. Like you have a lot to work with, and it makes it easy. I think acting at its purest form is easy if everyone's doing their job. Acting is just listening and responding, really. Anyway, at its purest form, like, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I'm deeply fascinated by acting and the magic that's around it when people transform themselves into somebody else, and we create and document that. A couple more questions, Emily. One is another kind of one going back, maybe about you. Who or what made you who you are?
Just as a human or like as an artist?
Both.
I mean, I think it's a combination of like your family, your school environment, your role models, what country you grew up in. My parents had a big influence on that. I mean, my dad put me into both of my parents, but my dad was, I think, more pushed me into doing arts and stuff like violin lessons, singing lessons. Like gave me a guitar book, took me to dance lessons, and gave me so many opportunities. So I think he really helped shape who I am today. And then having my mom as like a great woman, loving wife person, like as a role model, I think was really important as like a stable family. And then I watch movies. Like it's funny because it wasn't like the great acting that wanted me to get into acting. It was I really loved Tomb Raider, like Angelina Jolie's Tomb Raider, and I remember as a kid like going, oh my god, like I just want to be her, like she's so cool. I remember going, you know what, I'm gonna embody the character of Lara Croft, like I want to be more like her. So I remember I was almost playing a character, like I'm gonna be like Lara Croft, even though that is a character and Angelina Jolie is like not like her in real life. But yeah, like that almost had an influence of like a female role model. But yeah, I just and then did improv classes in high school, and that I think made me find a love for acting, of that feeling of maybe being the center of attention and making people laugh. That was like the best feeling ever. So that's that. But yeah, family, environment. I think just reading a lot of, I'm big into self-development, so I've read a lot of like self-development books, and just listening to people who have great minds or whatever, and just you can learn from their structure and how they live their life. So I think that's been really important too, just to always have mentors, teachers who are better than you, who are way ahead of you. I'm always like trying to I've guitar lessons, singing lessons, accent lessons. I'm always reading, studying new things. Like I just want to be around people who are better than me. So always. So I think that's a big part too.
Yeah, I the curiosity, to learn from others. It's one of the traits I enjoy, about myself. And I hear that in what you're saying of just like, how did you do this? You're great at doing this, and, observe and learn. And I thank you for your comments around like the process of creating, because, I can feel that energy and how you're thinking about it. Speaking of thinking, prior to you letting myself and listeners know, like where to find you and all that type of thing, there is the big question I have to throw at you before we depart, and it is, why is there something rather than nothing?
Why is there something rather than nothing? As like a very esoteric philosophical question. Well, I mean, There's something rather than nothing. Oh my god. I'm going to get really deep here. Have you ever heard of a book called Conversations with God? Have you
Yeah.
ever read that? Have you read it?
I haven't read it though.
So this is getting very into a more of a maybe deeper place, but at the start of the book it says God existed, and like if God, whatever existed, and the reason God created people or created the world, created the Big Bang, was because God couldn't recognize himself if it's just him. If it's just you, he couldn't see himself. So then he created everything around him. He started cells and humans, whatever, so that he could see himself like through their eyes, and then he exists. So it's like, if it's just you, if it's nothingness, do you even exist? No, I mean, there's no point. You're just there. It's like if you're in solitary confinement, you might as well be dead. But it's like everything exists, if you talk about God, to then, to actually give him meaning, so like he can see himself through other people's eyes. He's a mirror for his own existence. But I guess through our own lives, I mean, I think that's it, isn't it? Like we're all trying to survive, number one. So we're gonna create things. I think just through the act of survival and striving to be the best versions of ourselves, we have to create. If you don't create, you die. It's like the whole thing. You either go backwards or forwards, and I think if you go backwards, you just die. You become homeless. You just cease to exist. You become depressed. But I think in order for us to survive, we have to keep growing and pushing and just expanding to a new level. So I think it's just survival. It's just human nature to do that.
Yeah.
Fight or flight. Do or die.
Yeah. Do or die. Something rather than nothing.
Yes, exactly. Something's better than nothing, I guess.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Emily. Hey, so as you know, I enjoy your music, and you do other art projects. And I know you're pretty darn active right now. I want to be able to connect the podcast listeners to like where to find you, how to experience your art. Can you just lead us along those lines?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the best place to go and see everything, like on my website, which is just my name, Emily Coupe, Coupe. And from that, I have tabs of like music, acting, and I'll post everything. I'm also trying to produce films, so as they become into existence, hopefully, it'll be there. So under that umbrella, I mean, it's all there. But my Spotify account for music, I mean, I'm on Instagram, Facebook. I've got like a artist page, and then TikTok. I need to get more into TikTok. But they're the main ones I use. I mean, I've got a Twitter account too. But if you go to my website, it'll lead to all those things. But yeah, follow me on Instagram. It's just my name, Emily Coupe. Shoot me a message. But yeah, that's it. It's out there.
It's great. And I was able to, easily find your music on Spotify, and you have some great live videos. I wanted to thank you, earnestly, any guests I invite here. I really enjoy what you do and your enthusiasm, behind what you're creating. So, and as I might have mentioned, you've had some Australian guests. You're originally from Australia. Prudence Flint is a painter. Vanessa Stockard, a painter, and Dylan Jett, who does music as well. So some good representation, some wonderful artists, and I'm glad to have you here and to meet you, Emily.
You too. Thanks for hitting me up and for asking me to be on this. I love doing this. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, Emily, and look to see you both in film and on the radio and other places going forward. Have a wonderful day, Emily.
You too. Have a great day too, Ken. Bye.
Bye now.
This is Something Rather Than Nothing,